USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Monday, February 26, 2024. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and Derek Schooley. Well, guys, two regular season champs were crowned. There was a little bit of a race in the ECAC that saw Cornell falter over the last couple of weeks, but Quinnipiac captured its fourth straight Cleary Cup with a 5-2 win over Brown on Friday. Meanwhile, RIT clinched the Atlantic Hockey crown on Thursday, watching it on Flow Hockey, I guess, when Holy Cross lost 5-1 to Bentley. But then the Tigers took care of business with a sweep of Canisius over the weekend to really put some space between them and second place Holy Cross. No surprise really in either one of those, at least since January on.
Yeah, congratulations to Quinnipiac and Rand Pecknold and Mike Corbett and Joe Dume, and obviously Wayne Wilson and David Salako and Brian Hills. It's impressive to win the marathon. I know that in RIT's case, they've got bigger prizes ahead of them of what they want to accomplish, as do 10 other teams in Atlantic Hockey, because there is only the one bid. But that's impressive for what Quinnipiac's accomplished. 4 straight. That's an impressive number, because it means you've been really good. You haven't had a down year. You haven't had a slip where you continue to win year after year. So congratulations. Pretty impressive stuff from Quinnipiac, but also congratulations to Wayne and his staff at RIT.
And now it'll be up to both of these teams to try to bring something into the playoffs and do the same thing in a shorter tournament. Obviously, Quinnipiac, that's kind of been the story for them. 8 times they've won this championship, yet just once have they won in the ECAC tournament. So Lake Placid is someplace that they've got to get kind of that monkey off their back. It's something that mentally, I'm sure, kind of hampers you. And I know RIT won this championship last year and wasn't able to come away with the title. So I'm sure that they're in the same position where they're thinking, now we've got to go and take care of the games that really matter, especially for RIT, where you want to get into an NCAA tournament. Regular season titles are nice, but the only way to the NCAA is to win your conference tournament. So that is obviously what's on the minds for the Tigers right now.
I'm going to throw in 2 little tidbits about RIT. The arena is in their 10th season and only had sellouts twice, 2015 and 2018. Back-to-back home sellouts a week ago against Air Force, and then Friday night against Canisius. 4,300, standing room only. A building was packed, and they really hope to see that continue. And also they got presented the Bob DiGregorio Cup. Associate Commissioner of Atlantic Hockey Todd Bell drove it from Boston on Friday to be there and to present it, and had some fun social media on the way, showing the cup belted into a seat belt, and having a hamburger on the way, probably in Syracuse, and then getting a pregame nap in the hotel in the bed. So he had a little fun. He said to me, hey, if I have to get up at 7 a.m., I'm going to have fun with it. Well, let's go on to Boston College, Boston University, and North Dakota, all big sweeps. Also, Denver with a tie and a big win over Miami. So at this point, BC and BU are clinched for the NCAA tournament. North Dakota, Denver, Wisconsin, and Michigan are all just about locks. Those teams at the top, kind of cream rising to the top. There was a fun video of Brad Berry going into the locker room at North Dakota, kind of punching his arm in the air and dancing a little bit. Good weekend for those teams.
Yeah, I called the BC game on Friday night, and they were absolutely dominant. Great second period, and that freshman line continues to really shine. And we're talking. There was discussion. Has it ever happened that the top 3 scorers in the nation are all freshmen? We've figured out that has not happened, but it's possible right now with a couple of BC kids plus Celebrini from BU right now holding the top 3 scoring spots. That'll be interesting to watch as we go. North Dakota, boy, that was the get right weekend. They needed that really bad after being swept at Colorado College. And Denver, I'll give you an interesting one. I got to watch the Denver game on Saturday night. They win 8-1, and their goaltender got a shutout. The one goal was scored into an empty net during delayed penalty. So an 8-1 game where the goalie gets a shutout.
Does he get credited for a shutout?
I don't know. That's a good question. He should.
Yeah.
He didn't give up any goals.
So a goal on an empty net on a delayed penalty, what you're saying is an own goal.
An own goal. Shot right back, pass right back, ended up right in the middle of the net.
Ugh.
That's my worst fear. It's the worst fear when you've got the puck and they're trying to delay to give the goalie some time in your own end and trying some drop passes here and there. That's my worst fear. I've seen some things happen this year that I wouldn't be surprised to see that live in person, but hopefully it doesn't happen this coming week. But I will tell you, we talked last week. It's finally time that teams are becoming locks. It's really late. And you guys said that last week, and you guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have, but this is late for teams to start getting locks. That shows the parity of where we are in college hockey. And that shows you that yes, while it's the blue bloods at the top right now, and we've talked about that, and the teams that no new first timers potentially could win. But that being said, it's really surprising and really telling that it's taken this long to get locks, and it shows you this is a wide open race in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but I'll say the same thing I said last week. The top 9 really are far apart from the next 10 teams in the PairWise. In Boston College itself, they might not be able to be caught right now for the number 1 overall seed. They have such a gap between themselves and number 2 BU. That gap is as big as the gap between 10 and 20 in the PairWise almost. It's very close. I mean, that's how wide of a gap it is right now for BC. They have really taken the bull by the horns here in the second half. The Beanpot loss aside, everything else has kind of come up roses for the Eagles, and they're just rolling.
I mean, we're talking, first timers that could be in the field. St. Cloud, Western Michigan,
and then probably your 2 champions from the CCHA and
Atlantic hockey. I mean, there aren't many.
As long as Bowling Green is the champion, I mean, in the CCHA.
Yeah,
right.
Good point. So this is an interest. This will be a field of I guess winners, if minus Western Michigan and St. Cloud.
Well, while there'll be some movement in those top 9 for first, second, and maybe dropping to third regional seed, that next 10, as Jim mentioned, is really volatile and a lot of movement there. Boy, that's going to be a scramble right down to the end. Colorado College had moved right into the midst of things, but after sweeping North Dakota, tied and lost to Omaha and dropped outside the bubble. What a tough weekend for the Tigers there.
That's crushing, because they had really put themselves in a dominant position. When you really think about it, I think after those 2 wins, they were 74% to make the tournament. Now that's slipped a little bit, and they're on the outside looking in. They're going to have to actually do some work to get themselves back in. The positive thing, it's almost like Hockey East. They have 2 more weeks of regular season play to do that in. As opposed to a lot of these leagues, they're finishing up their conference, or in the case of Atlantic Hockey, it's already done. So they'll have a little bit more time in the regular season just to play some games, and then maybe some postseason games as well. But you had to feel so good after that North Dakota weekend, and then they definitely had a drop off in those 2 games against Omaha.
Yeah, probably a little bit of a trap weekend, a letdown weekend after you have such a good weekend. You're going against a good UNO team, but not the name. And kind of like I said, a trap weekend. You're feeling real high, and then you sometimes tend to get complacent. And right now, that's what separates good teams from great teams. They don't allow themselves to get complacent with where they are in the standings and where they're going. They just keep winning. And right now, that complacency set in. Big question that I saw, I don't remember. I think it was UNO's Mav Puck asked, is a win and a shootout win, is that considered a sweep?
Not to me.
I say no.
No, if it was an overtime win, I'd call it a sweep.
Yeah, it's got to be all. Well, I think you got to get all 6 points for it to be a sweep.
I'm okay. I'm okay
6.
with 5 of 6 if it's an overtime win, or even 2 overtime wins. I'd call that a sweep. I don't consider a tie with a shootout victory a win. That's still a tie.
Yeah.
That was I saw that.
I did see that yesterday. I wasn't inserting myself into that conversation.
You didn't get baited in?
No.
Neither did I.
And I typically would. I think I was too tired yesterday.
Oh, I run the other way. And some people, I think they sit on Twitter looking for people to nitpick.
Absolutely.
I sit on Twitter and just shake my head. UMass, boy, we talked about them last week after dropping down. They moved up to 12 after beating New Hampshire on Friday, and then dropped down to 13th, an overtime loss to UNH on Saturday. Boy, things are really volatile. UMass right on the edge. I guess some saltiness from Greg Carvel after the Saturday game, but man, they're in a battle right now just to be in, and can still be helped by the hockey's playoffs.
Yeah, Greg didn't like the tying goal in that UNH game. That there was a potential for goaltender interference. He challenged, did not win. I've gone back and watched it, and I'm not sure that the camera angles were perfect to conclusively say that the interference took place before the redirect of the puck. There's a lot that goes into that one. I'm staying away from that. But here we go again. UMass is now in a 4 seed position. And you have 2 Hockey East teams in the number 1 seed position. So if you want to avoid the conference matchup, the lower of those teams, which would be number 2 seed Boston University, needs to be shipped out west for the NCAA tournament so that host UMass can play in Springfield. A few weeks ago, we had this situation, and in bracketology, I wrote that I would actually make Boston University and UMass play each other in the first round. Now with 3, back then there were 3 Hockey East teams that were all number 1 seeds. Maine was included in there. I'm fine at this point. You got to ship. If you only have 2 Hockey East teams in that, you got to ship one of them west, the lower seed. So BC and B were almost playing to stay east as long as UMass sits somewhere between 13 and 14 in the PairWise.
What was the reaction when you said with your bracketology when you said you were okay with teams interconference games in the NCAA tournament?
Obviously.
Did you get any pushback?
Yeah, of course. Sure.
I would push back a little bit.
I mean, but it was one of those where you had 3 number 1 seeds from the same league, and you would have been taking North Dakota out of Sioux Falls. You would have been putting 2 of the 3 Eastern teams in the Western regionals, and you had 5 teams. So that does satisfy.
Well, North Dakota's the host. You can't take them out, right?
They're not the host. Omaha's hosting in Sioux Falls. So, you're in a situation where you have 5 teams from the same conference. That's the only exception the NCAA puts in the criteria that you're allowed to have an interconference first round matchup. That is almost the perfect storm in that scenario. I think it was 3 weeks ago, met that. Spoiler alert, this week I won't be doing that in my bracketology. I'll be sending BU out to St. Louis.
Yeah, I would be against that, though. I think the national tournament's got to be something different. You can't see a matchup that you've seen 3 to 4 times already. And I mean, you would have to exhaust every option in the world for me to be okay with that when I was on the committee. You would have had to went through every scenario to try to find something completely different.
And it does add some travel also because unless Air Force is the winner in Atlantic hockey, you've got another Eastern team as the 15th seed most likely that's also got to move out there. So you're adding 2 teams.
If you want to hold on to some bracket integrity for sure, yeah.
Michigan was on the outside of the bubble, moved back into 14, just hanging on by its toenails inside the bubble. They've got 2 games coming up this weekend at Minnesota. This was huge for Michigan to sweep Notre Dame. They really needed it, but boy, they are just hanging on by a thread.
And that's assuming 14's the number.
Yes.
Because I think at I think we've kind of been in a agreement a little bit that the 13 could pop up and be that number potentially, especially with how Cornell's kind of taken a little bit of a dip in the ECAC. So I think that there's that possibility, but this is kind of the Michigan team that we've expected to kind of inch their way into the PairWise. I think that's probably been one of the bigger surprises the last couple of weeks that they were out of the NCAA tournament picture. I think if they go and split, I think that at Minnesota with the PairWise criteria bonus, all that kind of stuff, I think that may help them if they can get one in Minnesota.
And right now, Colorado College sitting in 15th actually has the higher RPI over Minnesota. They are 9/10,000ths of a percentage point higher than Minnesota. I keep saying Minnesota, Michigan. They're 9/10,000ths of a point higher than Michigan, but it's one of those head-to-head somewhere along the line that Colorado College is losing. I didn't go through the entire bracket. I guess I could do that live as we're on the air here. CC somewhere loses one. They win North Dakota. They win Michigan, but they lose Omaha and they lose Arizona State as a comparison. So that's kind of where it's those weird losses that are what's giving Michigan they're one criteria. They're one pairwise ahead. They've got one comparison better than Colorado College. So if they lose that at any point, then they will drop down. That's the difference right now. It's minute.
Quinnipiac, they're now up to number 7 in the pairwise. Maine down to number 9. Maine had a split at home with Northeastern. How about Cameron Whitehead with a 39 save shutout, including 22 saves in the second period? Maine has been okay, but not great like they were at the beginning of the season down the stretch here. They were a top 4 team, now would be a 3rd regional seed.
And a couple of home losses, which were unheard of. Providence and Northeastern in the last few weeks have been able to go into Alphon and find ways to win those games. Yeah, they're basically a 500 team over the last month. So I'm a little concerned about Maine, but again, I like the top 9 right now. I feel like the top 9 are almost entirely locked in. It will take monumental collapses for any of the teams between really 3 and 9 to not make the tournament. But Quinnipiac, they're starting to move back. As they had their little hiccups, they are now moving back in the right direction. They keep going back up. So up to 7. I don't think that they can get into 4 to be a number 1 seed. I really think that the number 1 seed is the final one is going to come down to Wisconsin and Michigan State in the Big Ten. One of those teams gets it. One ends up being the number 5 or number 6 seed. But when you really look at it, Quinnipiac is starting to move in the right direction.
Yeah, and you follow this league, Jimmy. Do you think that that's a case of a youthful team at Maine trying to manage the ups and downs and kind of really, and whether we say it or not, these kids are young kids. They look on Twitter. They look at the articles about their team. They read things. And as much as you could say, stay off of social media and worry about what you can control, they don't. It used to be nobody got a newspaper, so nobody read anything that happened. But do you think that's the case of maybe just a young, inexperienced team getting too far ahead of themselves?
I definitely think it could be. In timing in your schedule means something too, right? They played New Hampshire. New Hampshire had been down, but they played probably their best weekend of hockey against Maine. Maine loses twice. They play Providence. Providence is playing really well right now. Northeastern is a team that's beat them twice in the last month. Northeastern in the first half, I don't even think would have sniffed Maine. They were banged up. They weren't together as a team. But Northeastern's playing its best hockey right now. So they've gone through a rough part of their schedule. I think Maine is a very good team. But yeah, I think that youth plays in the we haven't been here before. BU is young as well, but BU is coming off a Frozen Four appearance. Boston College, yeah, maybe they haven't been there before, but they've been close. And there's players on this team that were part of that COVID team that at least can provide some leadership in the locker room. And, and they remember being number one going into the Hockey East tournament, slipping a little bit, and then, never getting out of their regional, losing their one game in the regional final. So I think that there's a little bit more experience for teams like BC and BU than Maine. And I think experience matters. You've coached long enough schools to know that if you have a really heavy experienced team, you can, maybe go in and pull off some upsets. Whereas it's the opposite. If you've got that young, very unexperienced, we've never been in this position before type of team.
And it's maturity. It's being able to drown out the noise in the locker room and handle success too. And that's where it comes down to. How many of you guys are both broadcast journalists? Do you still get the newspaper?
Stopped getting printed version when they stopped delivering it reliably. So I look at the digital copy. And mainly just for some of the sports articles. I read out of town journalists more than I read the ones in town because we have no sports section here anymore. So I read people like Todd Molesky and Brad Schlossman all the time and several others that I could mention.
Pay your $1 for 60 free days.
Wow, there you go. Yep, exactly. A couple of quick hits here. One more on the bubble. Wisconsin and Michigan State. It may come down to the Big Ten playoffs to see which team is going to be the number one seed. Putting a monkey wrench in things for both teams was Ohio State getting 5 out of 6 points a couple of weekends ago, and then a split with Michigan State at Munn Arena winning on Friday night. How about the Buckeyes playing spoiler there?
Hey, they might be the scariest team in the Big Ten tournament. Anybody want to play Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament? Even if it's at home, it doesn't matter. This is a team that had one win in the Big Ten before 2 weekends ago, and now they have 4. And they're scary.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the difference in separation within our league, and I talked to Frank Serratori at the press conference. I mean, Ohio State was really low in their points, and we're talking about how the Atlantic Hockey is a lot closer from the bottom to the top than some of the other leagues. And right now you're at a point where Ohio State's making that claim. And, Miami got a win last week to shrink it a little bit. And they still have time left in their season to get points.
But by the way, right now, season ends today. Wisconsin, Ohio State in the first round of the Big Ten playoffs.
Wow. Well, one more before we break here, and we've got a lot more to cover. Bemidji State and Minnesota State, it comes down to them in the final weekend for the CCHA title. The Beavers with a 4-point lead. We had been talking Bowling Green, but Michigan Tech kind of spoiled that for them with 2 wins at Slater Family Arena. 40th anniversary of the 84 national championship being celebrated there last weekend, by the way. But really down to a 2-horse race, and you couldn't plan it any better.
We say it all the time, the schedule makers get it right. And here they did it again. And, it'll be a monumental comeback if Minnesota State sweeps and takes the title, yet another CCHA title. But Bemidji State just needs 1 point out of the 6 to claim a share of the title and 2 points to win it outright. But still, it works when you get to play in the final weekend. That's so fantastic. Unfortunately, it does, because of that. St. Thomas looks like they're still in, but one of those 2 teams, because they're playing each other, have to get points. So St. Thomas can't find a way to move up. But what a great season! I just want to mention that too for Rico. They're likely going to finish 3rd place, either 2nd or 3rd place in the CCHA. That's a fantastic start for that program.
Yeah, and you know what I was going to say is we jumped on the Bowling Green bandwagon. It's disappointing, obviously, with all the celebration going on the anniversary. I saw Jerry York was back, and all that hubbub around that weekend. And but hey, Michigan Tech went in and did what they did and kind of put Bowling Green on the outs. And now it's really there's a big race for the middle of the pack there. And Bemidji and Mankato, Minnesota State kind of separated themselves from the top when it was a big race for the title. Now it's a mid-pack race. And like you said, Bemidji only needs 1 point, and they'll have I believe it might be their first CCHA championship.
Yes, it would be. Their last championship was the WCHA championship back in, I think it was 2017-18.
We've got a whole bunch more to cover, including the fallout from the Alaska-Arizona State fight on Friday. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Where are my hockey fans at? Present. Welcome to Fandom 101. It's NCAA Ice Hockey Championship time, when the hottest teams in the country face off under one roof. Be there to see your squad hoist the ultimate trophy overhead. The NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th in St. Paul, Minnesota. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
We're back with Weekend Review. Boy, this one went viral. And I mean, not just in college hockey circles, but in sports circles in general. 247 penalty minutes after two major brawls. Two players got their way out of the penalty boxes for another fight. And I got some comments on that one, too, with some fingers being pointed by the Sports Information Department at Arizona State. But anyway, this is a situation. Well, we'll get into some of the details. Let's just get your take on this first and see where it goes.
Doesn't have any place in college hockey. I mean, I know that everybody says, allow fighting in college hockey. That's what makes college hockey. And I don't think it's got any place. I know that both programs are a little embarrassed by that. I think that I know that we're going to talk a little bit more in depth, but there's been some suspensions. I think it ended up being 4 games on each player. And I think Arizona State actually has another game added on to their player to make it every game the rest of the year. But I don't think it's got any place in it. We watched it as a team. I think it was, if it was just like the North Dakota Duluth kind of tussle, you wouldn't have heard anything about it. But with the players coming out of the penalty box, and that was a scene right out of minor pro hockey, which shouldn't happen. But 5-on-3 to start that, and it escalated from there. I'll let you guys give your take. I say no. I say the suspensions could be a little bit more, should be a little bit more, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think it's disgraceful, and the program should be embarrassed. That's a horrible look on coaching staffs. It's a horrible look on the players. Come on, guys, like, grow up, be more disciplined. And this is kind of, maybe this is a problem of the independent schedule. These teams played each other a ton. You know, they play each other for really being so distant away to play that many times against one another. I think they ended up playing 4 times in a season. And you look at Alaska and Alaska Anchorage this year. They play 8 times, I think. Like, you're going to create these types of emotional rivalries, or whatever you want to call them, by the end of it. And the leaving of the box, the penalty box, that goes over the top. That goes over the top in the NHL. And you would not be getting a call from Bill Daly if you left the penalty box. You would be flown to New York, and you would have an in-person hearing, and you'd probably have somewhere between 10 to 20 games in terms of a suspension. It's not tolerated at the NHL level. It shouldn't have been tolerated at the college level, but we're in this situation. I talked to Steve Metcalf, our good friend, the hockey's commissioner, on I guess it was Saturday night after this happened. And he said, all the commissioners got together and they said, well, if we have supplemental discipline for these independent teams, okay, you're in charge of this one, you're in charge of this one. So each league has kind of adopted a team to discipline. And then, after Saturday, they got together, they thought 4 games was enough. I don't think 4 games is enough. I think 5 games, fine. That's the end of the season for the rest of them. Neither of these players should be suiting up again this year. And I think for the Arizona State player, you got to teach a lesson. Throw some games into next year as well. 5 more games next year, 10 more games next year. This is stuff you can't have happen. And I agree with you, Derek, that fighting has no place in college hockey. And I know that this isn't a pro league where the penalty box attendants are actual officials. They're off-ice officials. This is, it looked like there was at least in the Arizona State box, the girl looked like she was about 19 years old and was outclassed weight-wise by about 100 pounds and 6 inches by the player. So she had no chance of stopping him. I mean, it's just, it can't happen. It's awful. I think it's bad for the.
It happens. There is fighting. There will be a fight here and there, whether it's because of the emotion and the physicality of the sport. There will be some fights during the year, but that was premeditated.
Yeah,
that could have been avoided. And I know that, like I said, I know that the teams are embarrassed, and I know that they took some Arizona State in their case by adding that extra game, and we'll see where it goes from there. But it no place. But the penalty box, they are considered off-ice officials. I was with Kevin Hall, who did a Frozen Four, did a championship game, and he said, and when they went up there, it's the Booster Club people, and this was way back when, and they're considered off-ice officials. And you almost need an adult in there. You need somebody there to be able to just stand in the way between the two of yelling at each other, and then have somebody stand in front of the penalty box door. And then if they put their hands on them, then it's a big deal. But that was way too easy for them to get out of the penalty box. And I know that this isn't what these programs represent. And I know that I know that Steve Metcalf always gives me trouble, that I know Greg Powers pretty well. And I know that he wasn't happy about it. And I'm sure Largent wasn't happy about it either. So it's not a good look. And I think that you'll see that there's some more discipline to come as far as at least an additional game with Arizona State.
I got a few thoughts on your guys' comments. First of all, on the penalty box officials, I saw a similar scrum about 15 years ago where a player came out of the penalty box, and it was an adult male who was the penalty box attendant. But when you've got a 6'3" defenseman in uniform, angry, he just pushed the guy out of the way and came out. That scrum, that fight, that line brawl ended up with some players getting as many as 9 games, basically the rest of the regular season back then. And you know what? I just got to drop this in there. Sports information folks have gone from kind of being straight on some of these things to being a little bit of fanboys on some things. And this one isn't really in that category too much, because I've seen some that might have come from a fan blog lately. But Arizona State said the extracurriculars reignited tensions between players. This is after there was a scrum after the first set of penalties. It reignited tensions between players from both teams already in the box, and a center ice one-on-one fight resulted after officials failed to keep players in the box from getting in on the action. Okay, who's going to be able to keep them in there? You got the 2 referees, the 2 linesmen trying to separate a bunch of stuff going on in the corner. Maybe what could happen is something, and I saw in a game this year, which was 2 guys were continuing to jaw at each other across the scorers table from the 2 penalty boxes. And the referees went over and gave them 10-minute misconducts, which got them out of the box the rest of the period, sent them off the ice for the rest of the period, and settled things down that way. Maybe you could have done that.
That should have happened, right? Like,
well, they got 2 and 10s. Why were they in the penalty box to begin with?
Right.
They should have been in the locker room already.
Yeah.
Right.
Every person that was in the first scrum should have already been in the locker room.
Yeah, there was 15 seconds left in the game.
Good point.
Just get rid of it.
Yeah.
There would have been that. I mean, there's a lot of fault involved in this.
Yeah.
And it's not just it's the players there first. The players, there's no question, they're at fault. You can't hold the coaches. This is not something the coaches didn't send them out. Does it look bad? Yes. But it's not, the coaches can't control that. Could the Fairbanks control the penalty box people? Yes. But the referees are in charge of the game, and they should have sent every one of those players right to the locker room. No need to have them there. It escalated it.
Finish the game with 6 players on the bench. It doesn't matter.
Yep, exactly. No, good point. Quickly, playoffs start this weekend in Atlantic hockey. The first league to wrap things up. A play-in round has number 11 Robert Morris at number 6 Bentley Number 10, Army. At number 7, Niagara. Number 9, Mercyhurst. At number 8, Canisius. Derek, you're going to sit this round out.
Do I get to make my pick? No.
Sit it out.
I got to sit out. No.
We've said you are now muted for the rest of the year.
I don't get to pick. Guys. Okay. Well, hey, it was good joining everybody today. Really excited about playoffs.
Best of luck in the postseason.
So
okay, I'm done.
Jimmy wants me to say who's maybe got the best chance for an upset. I can make a case for all 6 teams in here. Let's see. Let me make the case for each one of them very quickly, and then I'll tell you who I think has got the best chance at an upset. Robert Morris at Bentley. Those are 2 teams that there's a lot to like about on them. Robert Morris has 2 very good goalies, got 5 or 6 freshmen who have been very good and keep getting better. I think they could get a couple of quick goals. I've seen periods from Robert Morris where they've piled up a ton of shots, like 15, 16 shots. Meanwhile, Andy Jones has done a great job at Bentley. He's got 2 great goaltenders. They play a really good system. They're very defensive-minded, very disciplined. But Robert Morris has had good luck over the years in playoff games at Bentley. So there's a good case for both of them. Army at Niagara. Niagara, I think, has been inconsistent, but at times they have been kind of dominant. Army, I can't figure them out. They've got a lot of talent, young players, 2 competent goaltenders. That could be a big pickup for Brian Riley. And then Mercyhurst at Canisius. Mercyhurst is the most unpredictable team in that league. They can put up a lot of points. They have quick transitions. They're willing to keep a guy high to try to get an odd man rush, but Canisius does the same thing. If I had to pick one most ripe for an upset, 9 and 8 is not really that big an upset, but maybe Mercyhurst at that one. But don't be surprised if there are 2 upsets out of those 3 games.
Yeah, single elimination too. I don't think we've mentioned that this is just one game and done in this round. So I do feel like all 3 of the bottom seeds could win these games. Tough for me to pick here too, because when I look at all 6 coaches, I like, and I'm very friendly with most, really all of them. I don't know Trevor Large as I don't know Trevor Large as well. Didn't we mute you? I don't know Trevor as well, but Rick and I go way back. Brian and I obviously I've worked with both Andy Jones and
Jason Lammers.
So like I've been, there's too much experience with these coaches. I saw Armies this year, and I saw them really come out to Hockey East territory and manhandle a little team that might not be that great, but they're still a pretty good club, and nearly upset Merrimack, which at the time was playing pretty good hockey. So if I had to pick one, it's probably Army, but all 3 of those bottom seeds could win easily.
Well, I see you this weekend, though.
I'll find a way.
Yeah, at the game.
Well, I'm still waiting on my assignments this week, because I will be calling Women's Hockey East, and they're splitting their games between Friday and Saturday. So I'm not sure exactly which night I have, but I'll know that within the next couple of hours. But I would love to see you and finally get to see your team play in person this year.
Well, lastly, there was some very good news over the weekend and in the Pittsburgh papers today about Robert Morris and efforts for a new on-campus arena. Derek?
Yeah, we're exploring a new on-campus arena. We've applied for some things, funds from the state through what's called the RCAP, and we're going to start fundraising for it. Our new president, Dr. Michelle Patrick, really has got behind hockey, and Chris King, our AD, they've got a big vision, and I'm really excited about the potential of it. And I think that's what's going on in college hockey, and especially in Atlantic hockey. New arenas, Bentley, Sacred Heart, RIT, and Canisius obviously playing at the Harbor Center. So we're really excited about it, and hopefully the state helps out, and then we can start our comprehensive fundraising plan. There's a article in the Trib Review today on Trib Live about it, with quotes from our AD and our president. So it's not just speculative or rumor. It's fact. And it's really neat to see, seeing that about 2 years ago at this time, the press release was going the opposite way. So growth in the right direction.
Oh, we wish you the best of luck with that, schools. That's a monumental step in the right direction for your school.
Yep, I agree. Clearview Arena has served you well, but this is a step in the right direction for your program for sure.
I'm excited about it.
This podcast has been sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. For Jim Connelly, for Derek Schooley, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Weekend Review.